Let's boom tube in here. Hey DC Scholars, welcome back to another episode of the DC Discourse. I am Dallin Poulter.
And I'm Nathan Peterson.
We're excited to be talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths today. Now Nathan, why are we talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Yes, so we're talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths because as many of you CW fans may know, Arrowverse fans, it's going to be the big part of the next crossover and basically the ending to Arrow. So it's a huge part of this. And we're excited to be able to talk about it. So for anyone who likes Supergirl, Arrow, Flash, DC Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, whatever it is, Smallville even, you're in for a treat.
Batwoman.
Yeah.
If you're into that.
So we've got it all. And we're going to talk a little bit about the actual story of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Mm-hmm. So we want to go back to the story of Crisis on Infinite Earths, which happened in 1985. And we're going to talk a little bit about why this story was so important. And what's special about this is we're actually going to do it in how many episodes, Dallin?
We're going to do it in 2 episodes.
We're doing it in 2 full episodes because it's a lot.
It's a lot. So for this first episode, we're going to kind of go over a summary of what Crisis on Infinite Earths is, like the whole comic series. It's 12 issues, written by Marv Wolfman. And who was the artist?
I cannot remember the artist. I knew it was Marv Wolfman, the writer. Yeah. I can't remember who the artist is.
Someone drew it. He did a great job. Like, I don't think anyone else could have done it. So that's what we're going to talk about for this episode. Nathan's going to kind of lead it, and then I'll throw in comments here and there.
Yep.
And then next episode, in a couple weeks, we will kind of have a little discussion about Crisis on Infinite Earths, why we like it, and then we'll kind of talk about what they're going to be doing in the CW shows with it, kind of who's going to appear, and kind of what we hope to expect or what we might expect happening.
Yeah, okay. So before we get into the summary, we're going to do summary not issue by issue, but kind of in the different phases of the story. The most important thing first that we have to go over are some of the minor characters in the DC universe or weren't characters before that become a huge part of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So we're going to go over briefly just some of these characters that you probably haven't heard of if you're new to comics, or even if you're intermediate in comics, you might not have heard of a lot of these characters. So the first one is the Monitor. The Monitor is part of something called the Monitors that were created to, in the DC universe, they were created to kind of look over each individual universe. So they all kind of have their role in that. And the Monitor is over the universe, and he looks over kind of protecting and making sure everything's running smoothly. Now, he has a lot of powers, but they're kind of hard to go into because they're very cosmic-y. So basically, he's just aware of the universe and can be kind of present anywhere. So he's very much just an overarching godlike figure. Now, in addition to him, there's the Anti-Monitor, which is the exact same, but over the antimatter universe. So he is cosmic-y, but he's bad. So his whole idea is antimatter. And he's a crucial part of this because he is the main villain of Crisis on Infinite Earths. The other one that's really important to know about is, I've heard her name pronounced differently. I'm going to go over her name that's really easy one, which is Lila, but her superhero name is the Harbinger.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. And she is really cool. She has the power to, first of all, split herself into clones, and she can teleport, and I believe she has some sort of like light energy as well. They kind of don't go into a lot of details in the actual comics. I've looked up other things that go into her powers, but it is pretty vague. But her purpose in this is basically she's the gatherer. So she goes and gets people for the Monitor when they're building up an army. And we're gonna go into the story so you can understand, but you need to know who these people are first. The next one is Psycho-Pirate, and Psycho-Pirate is basically all you need to know is he has the power to control emotions and to manipulate people's emotions, which is crucial in this storyline. The other two that we're gonna go over really quick, Pariah. Pariah is a character who, his role in Crisis on Infinite Earths is that he travels between the universes wherever something bad is happening. Whenever one of the universes is dying, he gets transported there, and we'll explain why. But he gets transported there as a punishment for something he did earlier to basically watch the universes die, and to see kind of the aftermath of something he did earlier. And the last one is Alexander Luthor, who is important in this one because he helps bring together the universes and unites them. And Alexander Luthor is not Lex Luthor. Alexander Luthor is from Earth 3 and is actually a good guy married to Lois Lane. So to explain the multiverse, in the multiverse in comics, there's infinite number of universes in comics. So as we mentioned before, there's the golden age of comics, which is the 50s, and then you have Silver Age, and they kind of make it seem like all these different ages have different universes. So to give an example, Earth 1 is the main characters we know, Earth 2 are the main characters we know, but the Justice Society, so kind of older. And then Earth 3 are all the heroes are villains, and all the villains are heroes, basically, so it's flipped. Those are just 3. They have, the thing with DC is, before this moment, it was a wreck. They had...
There's no such thing as continuity.
Yes.
It was just absolutely everywhere, and it was just kind of like garbage. Looking at it, it's just like no one knows what's going on, and it's just very confusing to follow.
So, Crisis on Infinite Earths was made to basically consolidate everything. So they took all these infinite numbers of Earths, and they made it into one. But instead of doing that just by basically publishing it, they wanted to give an in-continuity reason for it, and that's why this was born. So they spent years in the making for this. They even introduced the Monitor and other storylines beforehand to kind of do a countdown to understand, oh, this character is going to be a huge part of what's happening. So we're going to get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of
an easy way to think of it is like compare it to the MCU with what they do with the movies. They spent years just building up to Endgame, and Endgame happens, and that's basically what Crisis on Infinite Earths is that they built up to it, and then the Crisis is
the big
equivalent of Endgame, just a massive event in DC universe, and it was amazing. Yeah,
it's great. So again, 1985, and so how it starts, we're just going to try to go through this pretty quickly. It starts with the Harbinger being summoned to basically go and recruit everyone. So she's recruiting everyone, and the story actually starts with Earth 3 going through the crisis. There's an antimatter wave that an unknown being is sending through the universe and is destroying universes. So right from the beginning, every other universe has been destroyed except for Earth 1, Earth 2, and Earth 3. So it starts with the destruction of Earth 3, and the Crime Syndicate, which is the evil Justice League, is trying to save the world because they may be villains, but they also don't want to die.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so they're trying to save it. They don't. A couple of them get recruited from Harbinger first to come and join the Monitor's army to try and save the last 2 Earths. And this is when we get introduced to Pariah as well, and he sees the death of this universe and basically realizes what happened. So Pariah's purpose is basically kind of he's a scientist and explorer, and his idea is to basically just kind of be an outside viewer of seeing what's happening in the universe. It's a lot like Spectre in Kingdom Come in that way, where he's kind of being transferred around. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. And they also go over the beginning of the DC universe and just basically say, multiverse was created, and the antimatter universe was created, and nobody in the universe knows how it was started. And Pariah was an explorer who basically wanted to find out how the universe was started. So he went back trying to find it, and when he goes back to the beginning of time to figure out what happened, he accidentally released the Anti-Monitor into the universe. And so that's why the Anti-Monitor comes, and that's why his punishment is what it is. To move on a little bit more in the story, what happens is, as all these people are getting gathered from all these universes to help save the world, Psycho Pirate, the guy I mentioned earlier, comes in to save the world as well. Monitor recruits him, but the Anti-Monitor basically converts him to the dark side and convinces him to work for him instead. And we see the growth of Alexander Luthor throughout this story, and he actually grows up really quick. And so Alexander Luthor grows up really quick and becomes a crucial part of the story as well. Now, for issues 3 and 4, there's a lot of just kind of random fighting as this antimatter wave and the armies, the shadow demons, or what they call of the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, is coming and trying to destroy the world. And they're just kind of fighting. You don't really see a lot going on. But what happened that's really important is the Harbinger, who is good, inside of her, the Anti-Monitor has infected her. And she's being
one of the demons got a hold of her, one of her other beings that she created.
Yeah, one of her other clones, thank you.
Yeah.
And so they got infected, and then they kind of come out together. She has this Anti-Monitor inside of her, the demon, kind of coming out and convincing her to kill the Monitor. So she kills the Monitor, and she feels awful about it. And then in the next issue, you find out that the Monitor knew this was going to happen, had planned ahead for it the whole time.
Wanted it to happen.
And to make another Star Wars reference, he basically tells Lila, don't worry, his face appears on the screen. He's like, I'm more powerful now than I ever could have been in my being. So he's basically part of the Jedi Ghost Force in DC Universe.
And we like that.
So he's very powerful. And he created something, he needed to be dead to create something called the Netherverse. So his idea with the Netherverse is to bring everybody in from all the universes and bring them in so that they would be safe. And that they could kind of fight the Anti-Monitor as he's trying to take over other things, and everyone else would be safe in this Netherverse. It was a temporary solution, but it gave them a way of kind of working towards a solution. And then Harbinger agrees that in order to redeem her sin, she and Alexander Luthor, who also felt responsible because the Monitor saved him as a child, they agree that they're going to save the world, and they go get more heroes, and that's basically the most important thing that you see happening. And then when the Antimatter tries to attack the Netherverse, Harbinger saves it, but she loses her powers in the process. So as far as this point, this is the midpoint of the series. And up until this point, just so you know, I know we haven't mentioned the Antimonitor as like a being yet. He's kind of not there. He's almost like the Voldemort, where he's like, no one knows what's going on. He's like an unnamed source. So it's kind of confusing. Now, what happens in issue 7 and issue 8 are very important. So in issue 7, Supergirl, Superman, they go to basically the Anti-Monitor's, what would you say, like his area, his like area in space is like Space Rock or something. And they go to fight him and to destroy him. And everyone's kind of getting wrecked. And then Supergirl goes to fight him with Dr. Light by her side, who is actually a villain, but decided she wanted to be alive too.
Makes sense.
And so they go to fight the Anti-Monitor, and Supergirl goes to fight him and actually is able to defeat him in the sense that he no longer has a body, but she dies in the process. Which is a huge part that we're going to get in.
And a super sad panel cover of just Superman holding Supergirl's lifeless body.
It's pretty tragic. But anyways, it's a huge part of the story that she did die, and her sacrifice basically saved the whole universe. And at this point, they have like a few panels where everyone thinks it's fine, that they've kind of gotten rid of everything.
Oh, I will say this is cool. I can't remember if it's in issue 7 or not, but
yeah, you're fine.
Superman wanted to give her like a proper burial. So what was left of the Fortress of Solitude is he takes her and buries her there.
It is awesome.
Wrapped up in her cape.
So and it's really cool because they basically think everything's fine. But then what they do is they go back and you see Psycho-Pirates in space, and he had captured the Flash at this point, and the Flash is trying to escape. And they both still realize the presence of the Anti-Monitor is still there. And so the Flash escapes, but then Anti-Monitor comes back as an energy force, kind of like what happened with the Monitor, and kills the Flash. So in these two issues, two characters that are like beloved characters of DC just get wrecked.
Gone.
And so it changes everything for the next 15, 20 years of comics.
And shocked all fans.
Yeah, because again, the panel is awful. You see basically Wally West holding the Flash's suit.
Especially seeing Barry Allen just like disintegrate slowly, like panel by panel.
Yep, it's crazy. And so what happens after this point, it's kind of funny. You see a one issue, the villains are trying to take over because they feel like they can kind of now win. So like Brainiac has just been chilling in space, comes Lex Luthor and like, hey, we should take over the world because Anti-Monitor's not here anymore. But then the Spectre comes and tells everyone, hey, look, Anti-Monitor's still around, and you guys need to get your crap together and go save the world because
y'all are gonna die.
Y'all are gonna die. And guess what happens? Earth 2 dies.
Gone.
So he comes back as an Anti-Monitor wave and wrecks Earth 2. And so some of them are on Earth 1 and they're still saved, but basically they're screwed. But then in issue 11, they all kind of agree that they accept their new world as one universe. So at this point, the purpose of Crisis on Infinite Earths has already been taken care of. They defeat the Anti-Monitor. They're all together on Earth 1, just like DC intended for it to be.
All other universes and Earths are gone.
Yeah, so exactly what they wanted. Anti-Monitor basically wins at this point. But they obviously couldn't let that happen. So in issue 12, what they do that's pretty cool is they have heroes, and then Darkseid actually comes, because Darkseid was like, I knew that I needed to do something. He was like, I knew what was going to happen is either Anti-Monitor would win, and I'd be able to defeat him because he'd be so tired from the battle, or I knew that you guys would win, and then I'd kind of be able to come and do what I've always been doing, trying to rule the world. And he's like, well, Anti-Monitor lost, but he's coming back, and now he's more powerful than ever. I need to defeat him, so I'm going to come help you guys fight, and then we'll see what I do with you guys afterwards. So he comes back, they fight, and then just checking my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. So basically what happened is Kal-El from Earth 2, he's a Superman from Earth 2, destroys the Anti-Monitor, and he and then Superboy Prime fight him. And he, Superboy Prime, and Alexander Luthor, after defeating the Anti-Monitor, get taken basically to a paradise universe for what they've done. And that's not super important now, but it's going to be very important in 20 years later when Infinite Crisis comes out, and these characters who were the saviors basically turn out to be the villains of Infinite Crisis. So it's huge how it all connects, and it's crazy. And the other thing that's really interesting is I don't know exactly how it happened, but somehow everybody forgets the multiverse even existed.
Yeah.
Except for those three.
Yep.
So they all kind of live in this new one universe, and Psychopilot's the only one that remembers. And nobody believes him because he, after straining himself so much to take over people's emotions, he tried to take over worlds of emotions, he kind of went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone thinks he's insane. So those are kind of like the principal points. I know there's a lot of stuff that I did not go over, but I didn't want to make this video a long time. This is basically for anyone who doesn't know much about it. They can come in, they can watch the video and be like, oh, so this is where they got kind of the basic idea of all the universes of the Arrowverse coming together. And so it's cool too because I really like the story because it kind of goes into a lot more characters that you don't get a lot of history about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool.
What's really cool is there's like absolutely like everybody in the DC universe is in this series.
And we're gonna get into a little bit more in our next video about we're gonna have a discussion about this. But for now, I wanted to keep this video pretty short for you guys. So that's a summary. If you want to ask us questions about who these characters actually are, you always know you can hit us up on Instagram. And now we get to the fun part. We ask you guys to help us out. So press that subscribe button, please. If you're watching this video, subscribe. Follow us on YouTube by subscribing. And then share this with somebody else because we need you. We put a lot of time in this, and then we have a nice little team of 4 of us that put a lot of time in this. And we want people to, learn about some cool comics.
Then give us a follow on Instagram at the DC Discourse. It'll pop up at the end of this video. And then let your friends know about it as well and have them follow us too.
Yeah, but for now, we're gonna
boom, do that up here.